Alrighty. So, what's the number one thing that I have on my list for uh, building a business? And the very first thing that I have on my list is to acquire a CPA. And now I'm in the United States. So, in other countries, it may be different. But a CPA is basically a certified tax specialist. And that is going to be important because when you set up your company, you want it to be in the proper format so that you can have as great of tax savings as possible. And I have a specific plan on how I'm setting up the company. I'll get into that in a future video. But not all CPAs are comfortable with it or want to support that. What my plan is, and so I just want to say that the reason to do it first is because if you don't have a CPA, when it comes time to do your taxes, you're going to be screwed because when it becomes tax season, if you don't already have a CPA in place, then you may not get your shit put in time. And that may not be a problem, but you're not going to get it in time. Now, there's a flip side to that, which is if you have not ever done any sales with your company and you haven't done any testing to see if anyone wants to buy your product or whatnot, then you can skip the CPA part because really you're at a hobby level and you need to prove that people need and want your service or your product before you go investing a bunch of money in all of the company infrastructure and everything. So, I mean, I'm going to lay out several grand just as a retainer for the CPA to start, and the company that I'm building is a proven business, and so I am not skipping this step. And if you are someone who has a product or service that you know that people want and you are getting in, like, say, the $10,000 range for a year, um, then you need to start thinking about putting a company together. So below that, I wouldn't worry about it so much. It's hobby money. And so anyway, because I do this business will have sales internationally. We'll both bring in product from the U.S. and from international, and our customers will be both based in the U.S. and international. It's e-commerce. The I found that not a lot of CPAs feel confident about dealing with international business. And now, to me, it's just, I've been doing it for so long that it is just second nature. And really, the IRS just cares about the money that you have coming in and the money that you paid out, the difference, the the net profit after all of your expenses and everything. They don't care what currency it's in. They don't care if it's euros or if it's um, Australian dollars or Russian rubles. They don't care. I mean, the government does care on the Russian rubles part while we're blocked from doing business with Russia because of the Ukraine war. But beyond that, the IRS does not care where or what the the currency is. They just you just convert it to US dollars and file your reports. And so as long as they're getting their tax, they don't care. And I think that a lot of CPAs, and there's personal CPAs and then there's business CPAs, and so I am engaging with CPAs that do both business and personal, especially in if you are running an LLC, then the business is personal. If you're running a corporation, then there's a separation there. And so if you are self-employed and you have an LLC, you'll file it under your taxes. Even if you have employees, all that stuff, whatever the company is worth is in many cases what you are worth. And but it is a separate taxable event in the company, but it is under your personal taxes. Whereas in a corporation, an S corp or C corp, which they have a little bit of differences, but I'm going to be forming an S corp, and then there is a separation between the the S corp and any LLCs, which could be known as divisions or other companies, and you segregate them so that they are protected from each other, so that if one of the common things a lawyer will tell you is if you get sued, from one company or whatnot, you want to protect your other companies and your other assets. And so they're in separate LLCs. So they're just suing that one LLC. And they might be suing an owner too, which would be you. But, and by the way, in all of my years of business, I've had people threaten lawsuits before. I have never had to go to court to settle a lawsuit ever. And but that's because I believe in doing honest business. And I run a super tight ship, and it won't. Anyway, I'm getting off track. That could be another video for later. You'll find that I do all these videos in one take. And so even if I make a mistake, I say something I shouldn't or whatever, well, it's just part of these videos. And it's ease of production for me so that I can record it, post it, so you can have access to it, and I can keep doing what I do. So in the getting back to the CPA, I found that I was having a really, really hard time with finding a CPA. I live in a small town, and it could be very well described as a country town. Our population is not very large, and it's somewhere between 10 and 20,000 in total. Our county is one of the less populated counties in our state. And I went to all of the CPAs here in town, which there was 4 or 5 that would do work with business. And I got some really interesting answers. Anywhere from, we're not comfortable about the international sales because we don't know the laws, which the IRS don't give a shit. Money in, money out. That's what they care about. There are nuances to that, to where you can save on taxes, and there's like costs of like currency conversion and stuff like that, which is really just an expense. You really can think about your taxes as really what it costs to get the item, what it costs to process it, you sell it, the profit minus the employees, time and any other expenses related to it, and then there's the profit that you're taxed on. Simple. And I think that could be applied to nearly everything. And so anyway, I got a couple of responses of, we aren't comfortable with international because we don't know the international laws. And, I think that they're thinking something like that they're going to have to advise us on how to pay tax, in Europe or in other countries and stuff. And in all honesty, it's really kind of the same thing as it is in the United States, that if you don't have a physical presence there, then you typically are not paying tax there. And so if you have a physical presence in a state and they have a sales tax, well, then you may have to very well pay that sales tax there. But if you are shipping to another state and they don't have, or they have a sales tax, you may not be required to pay the sales tax. In some cases, you may, but you may not. And that's because it's within like the US for us. But if we are shipping to Canada or we're shipping to Europe or it's electronically, delivered and to Canada, Europe, Australia, Africa, wherever, um, you don't have to worry about each and every one of those if you have no physical presence there. And then also if it's electronic delivery of goods and they're getting it like immediately, then there's no customs to go through or anything like that. And so in most cases, you don't have to worry about what kind of taxes are there at the destination point, especially when it's outside your country. And now, I am not a lawyer. I am not, anything else. So all this advice is my personal opinion. And if I'm wrong and you follow it, it's on you. Now, I'm not saying I'm wrong because I don't believe I am. I will not share anything that I do not believe to be true. And if I have questions about it at all, to where it sounds really good, it sounds solid, I'm going to say something like that. I'm not going to tell you this is 100% true. I'm going to say, to me, it appears like such and such. So, but it's up to everybody to do their own diligence, right? So, then I also got some responses of, we only do brick and mortar. I'm like thinking to myself, man, do you write everything out by hand in ledgers too? I mean, so I started contacting other CPA firms in neighboring towns, and went to the closest city, and I had just very marginal success. I ended up with doing probably about 8 or 9 meetings with CPAs through like Zoom or whatever, and they didn't have. It never came to fruition, and I felt like I was wasting my time. So, a good friend of mine, which I'm leaving all names out of this, locations, all of that. I'll just say a good friend of mine. Thank you. You know who you are. If you happen to see this, he said to me, why don't you just write up a list of what your company does and what you need from a CPA, and then blast that out to all of them that look like they would fit the bill within your state. And so I did that, except that I found one that looked like a really great fit. And so I started with that one, and they are within the state in another city. I mean, they're within our state, but in another city. And finally got one, by flipping the table on it and thinking about it differently. I just tell them what the meeting is going to consist of on whether or not they decide whether or not they want to work with us. I just tell them all that information right at the beginning, and then have them contact if they want to do business with us. And that worked really well. So anyway, I have my CPA now, and we've not put down the retainer and stuff yet, but he already sent me some questions. And the first question he sent me was, what are the company names? I'm building the business. I don't know the answer to that yet. I guess I'm going to have to figure that out. And that'll make another video about how I decided on how to name the companies, because company name may not matter. It's the DBA that matters. In another video. Thanks for watching. Hit that subscribe if you made it this far. And do post any questions in the comments, and I will read those, and some of those will end up being topics for videos. Take care.